In Generation 3, the odds of encountering a shiny Pokemon are 1 in 8,192. In the new generations of Pokemon, you have access to something called a shiny charm, which increases the odds of you actually being able to encounter a shiny Pokemon. But you guys are Generation 3 fanatics and love to watch me hunt for shinies in a game that do not offer anything to boost my odds. Without the conveniences of the Medusa method or a shiny charm, all of this is going to come down to patience. A lot of patience. Welcome to my third and final Pokemon FireRed / LeafGreen shiny only video. Probably. The rules for this one are pretty simple. I need to have a full team of 6 shiny Pokemon before entering the Elite Four. Every Pokemon must be shiny, obviously. That means no non-shiny HM users. I can't use any items in battle, and I must play on set mode. These videos take a very long time to make, so if you guys do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe. And without any further ado, let's get into it. Here we are once again back in Pokemon FireRed. Last time I did this, I chose Bulbasaur, and the time before that, I chose Squirtle. So this time, it's time for Charmander. The downside to this is that Charmander is going to be a lot worse at early game compared to Squirtle and Bulbasaur. Resetting for Charmander was a very annoying task. I was able to get around 10 to 11 resets a minute, which honestly isn't too bad, but it still took a very long time to do. I was getting around 660 resets an hour, roughly, of course, and after many hours and almost 17,000 resets, I end up getting my shiny Charmander. Shiny Charmander does look pretty cool, but we all know its final evolution looks a lot cooler. The rival battle ends up going as good as you would expect, and I end up winning solely because my Pokemon is shiny and his is not, and we all know shiny Pokemon have better stats than non-shiny Pokemon. I head to the Martin town, get this item for Oak, return it to Oak, get a Pokedex, and then I'm off to Vermilion Forest Town City, home of the Rock-type gym leader, Brock. And to say this did not go well is an understatement. I am at level 14, so I do know Metal Claw, but the Onix was just not having any of it, and the only way I was able to win was to just brute force reset on this battle until I get the best possible RNG, which eventually did happen. I ended up getting an attack boost from Metal Claw as Onix missed a Rock Tomb, and then my next Metal Claw was a critical hit, so that went really well. And after showing off our insane skill, we get the first gym badge. I could also run now. At level 16, Charmander evolved into Charmeleon, which follows the same exact color scheme as Charmander did. After defeating a super nerd in Mount Moon, I have to pick a fossil, and I end up choosing the Helix fossil. It has also occurred to me that I'm not going to beat Misty with a Charmeleon, even if it was level 40, so I think it's time to find our next team member. I tried to beat Misty with only Charmeleon, and I just do not think that it's possible. So for my next team member, I end up going west of Cerulean. This is Route 4, and honestly, our options are not great here. The options for this route are Rattata, Spearow, Ekans, and Mankey. I could have different options if I go north, but I do not want to overlevel. Using this method, I'm able to encounter more Pokemon per hour compared to resetting for my starter. This is mainly because there's no dialogue to get through, and it doesn't ask me to name my starter every 2 seconds. Luckily for me, this did not take as long as it did to get my starter. It still took a couple weeks on and off, but eventually I did run into my next team member. Our next team member is an Ekans at level 6, which definitely isn't the best, but it will be helpful for Misty since eventually it does learn Bite, and Starmie of course is a psychic type. But now that we got our second team member, I could give it the most creative nickname I could think of, and we can continue. Once again, the gym fight was not easy at all. Our starter is basically useless here, so I have to completely rely on Ekans. The only upside is the fact that I have Glare and Bite, which can be good for paraflinching, but of course I have to get lucky for that to even be remotely a possibility. And when Snake got knocked out, I couldn't even rely on Smoke Screen because Starmie had Swift, and even though it's not super effective, it was more than enough to take me out. But eventually, just like hunting for shinies, if you reset enough, you will get lucky. This battle specifically highlights how broken a paraflinch combo was in Generation 3. I end up using Glare on Staryu and taking it out with a critical Bite, and of course last up is the Starmie, where I barely survive an attack with only 3 HP, paralyze Starmie, and then just spam Bite, and for some reason it ends up working out pretty well. And now with Misty out of the way, we get the Cascade badge, and we can make our way to Bill. Bill's a Clefairy, so I unclefairy him, he gives me a ticket, and bada bing bada boom, I am in the next town, city, thing. I soon arrive at the SSN where I could get the HM for Cut, which I am not teaching my Charmeleon. And even though Snake evolved into Bigger Snake, it could not learn Cut either. The rival battle on the SSN is not even worth talking about, as I just paraflinched literally everything. And even though I get the HM Cut from the captain, that doesn't mean I actually have a Mon I want to put it on. And even if I do end up looking for another team member, there's no guarantee that that Pokemon will actually be able to learn Cut. Initially, I really wanted a shiny Diglett, but because of Arena Trap, I realized that this just was not not possible. At first, I didn't mind that they had Arena Trap, I just planned on KOing every single Diglett that I saw, but it was giving me way too much EXP, and I was pretty sure I was going to reach level 100 before I actually found a shiny Diglett. I may have not found a shiny Diglett, but what I did find was absolutely crazy. I found a message from today's sponsor, Bai. If you've ever used American sites to buy anything from Japan, you've probably noticed a huge price spike. This is where Bai can come in and save you a lot of money. Bai is a service that places orders or bids on your behalf on Japanese shopping and auction sites and ships them straight to you without any insane price increases. This includes sites like Rakuten, Amazon Japan, and Yahoo Japan Auction. Bai is super easy to use and has support for multiple languages and ships worldwide. Bai buys a product from Japanese sellers and the item is shipped to Bai's warehouse. From there, it is prepared for international shipping and it is sent directly to you. Bai also has a large variety of insurance and shipping methods. Everybody has a different situation and Bai has you covered. So if you've been waiting to get that Pokemon game you've always wanted, now is the time. Check out my link in the description below and get 10% off your first time order from Bai. Again, that is a 10% blanket discount on your first time order from Bai. Go get the coolest things you've always wanted from Japan, and of course, thank you Bai for sponsoring this video. Eventually, I decided to hunt for my next team member on Route 6, which is just north of Vermilion City. On Route 6, we could either get a Pidgey, a Meowth, or an Oddish. Again, these are not great options, but as long as it could learn Cut, I really don't care. And finally, for the first time that I could ever remember, I found a shiny below odds. Assuming I did my math right, I got this at almost exactly 8,000 encounters, and it ended up being a shiny Oddish at level 15. I looked it up, and yes, Oddish can learn Cut. After paralyzing Oddish, it only took a few Pokeballs to catch it, and I ended up nicknaming it Yeah. Also, Vileplume is a super good Pokemon, so I'm actually pretty happy I caught this. Now with Oddish on our team, we're able to take on Surge, who leads off with a Voltorb at level 21. Voltorb goes down with only 2 bites as Surge sends out his next Pokemon, which is a Pikachu at level 18, who takes a lot of damage from Bite. Surge then goes for a Super Potion, bringing Pikachu back up to full HP, but a couple more bites and it ends up going down. Last out is Raichu, so I send out Charmeleon and go for Ember, and he ends up going for Double Team, which is extremely cringe, but luckily my less cringe strategy of going for Ember is enough to take it down. And for the first time, I finally have an easy gym battle. And now that we have the Thunder Badge, it is time to take on my favorite part of the entire game, Rock Tunnel. All jokes aside, this was extremely easy to get through, and by the way, Oddish evolved in the Gloom, so that's cool. After getting out of Rock Tunnel, I head straight through Lavender Town all the way to Celadon City. Charmeleon now knows Flamethrower, so I decided to head straight to Erica because I'm pretty sure with that move I'm able to sweep through her entire team. Victory Bell goes down with only 1 Flamethrower, and so does Tangela, and last up is Vileplume at level 29, who also goes down to 1 Flamethrower, so yeah, Flamethrower was enough. Now that we got the Rainbow Badge, it's time to take on the Rocket Hideout in the game corner. The very first grunt I end up taking out is enough to get Charmeleon up to level 36, where he evolves into everybody's favorite shiny, Charizard. I know everybody says this is their favorite shiny, but it's for a good reason because this thing looks absolutely amazing. The Giovanni fight went about as well as you could imagine. The only issue I had is with this Kangaskhan, but eventually I was able to take it down with Snake. Giovanni then drops the Silph Scope, and we're able to head to Pokemon Tower. The rival battle ends up going super well, mainly just because I put this off until I couldn't anymore. I beat up a Ghost Marowak and then rescue Mr. Fuji as he says thank you very much and gives us a Pokeflute so we could actually continue on our journey. But first, I think it's time to find another team member. In Saffron City, there is a fighting dojo, and if you beat every single person inside of the fighting dojo, you get an option between a Hitmonlee and a Hitmonchan. I've never even attempted to hunt for either of these before, so I decided this time I'm gonna go for it. I ended up hunting for a Hitmonchan instead of Hitmonlee, mainly just because of the coverage moves that Hitmonchan could learn. I definitely did not forget about the Gen 3 split stuff. This one took a very long time. I don't know why, but it took upwards of 2 months looking for this shiny on and off. Obviously, I wasn't hunting 24 hours a day for this shiny, but it's still ridiculous that it took this long. And after roughly 30,000 resets, I finally get my shiny Hitmonchan. In boxing, you have the red corner and the blue corner, so I wonder if that's why Hitmonchan's gloves are blue. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. I still think he's pretty cool. If you guys are enjoying this video and it's not too much effort, I would really appreciate it if you did subscribe, and if not, it's completely fine. Just let me know how I can improve down in the comments below, so maybe I could get you next time. Now, of course, I would be dumb if I did not take advantage of a very strong static Pokemon, so of course I had to do the thing that makes sense to everybody. I killed Snorlax, and now I'm gonna head to Koka's gym. On the way, I decided to give Gloom a Leaf Stone, that way it evolves into Vileplume. I decided decided to do this now just because I actually learned Moonlight, which is exactly what I was waiting for. Eventually, I make it to Coughing, and he leads off with a Koga at level 37. I lead off with Vileplume and put Coughing to sleep, and then this spam cut, and it takes a very long time, but eventually Coughing does end up going down. Next out is Muck, and we all know Koga's Muck loves to go for minimize, so as soon as I put this thing to sleep, I switch out into Charizard. I decide to spam Flamethrower here, and unfortunately Muck does set up a lot of minimizes, but somehow I end up getting lucky and I end up taking it down anyway. Coughing gets one shot with a Flamethrower, and last out is Wheezing at level 43, who ends up going down to only a couple of Flamethrowers, even though it outlevels us, which is kinda wild. Now it's time to go back up to Saffron and take on Silphco now that we got a few more levels. Once we arrive at Silphco, of course our rival is there, and I would be pretty concerned if he wasn't. Is a great counter to a starter and is able to do a lot of damage to execute before I end up getting parafused, so I just end up switching out to Hitmonchan, who takes it out with only a couple of Ice Punches. Next out is Alakazam, and normally you would switch here 100% of the time, but for some reason Hitmonchan just decided to get a critical hit and take him out, so that was pretty cool. Hitmonchan then tries to take down the Growlithe, but unfortunately he's just shy of being able to take down the Growlithe as it goes down with only a sliver of HP left, so I switch in Charizard to finish the job, and that is our rival once again out of the way. And now it's time to hunt for our next team member, which of course is going to be Lapras. I know I got this in the last video, but I'm getting it again because it has access to Surf, Strength, and Ice Beam, which is super helpful. So like always for these static encounters, I put everybody except one Pokemon in the box, and it is time once again to reset like I have no life. I was absolutely on the grind to get this shiny Lapras. To beat this game, you need a Pokemon that knows Strength and Surf, so this is not optional, and Lapras fills both of those roles, so I don't really know if there's any alternatives, and also I just like Lapras a lot, so I think it's a good fit. Luckily, this one did not take 2 months to do. This one took around 15,000 resets, which of course is above odds, but at this point, since this is like my 6th or 7th shiny only video, I'm definitely used to it. Purple Lapras is also objectively better than normal Lapras. Welcome to the team, buddy. The Giovanni fight was so easy, it's not even worth talking about. But if you really want to watch it, here it is in 30 times speed. Vileplume is pretty much just a hard counter to Giovanni at this point, and the only issue I had was with Nidoqueen. I just had to switch out for this one, unfortunately, but I do end up winning. I then get to talk to the president, and he gives me a Master Ball, which I will not waste on a Pidgey. Now I head all the way back to Fuchsia City and grab the Gold Teeth, the TM for Double Team, as well as the HM for Surf. I then go give this old guy his teeth back as he gives me the HM for Strength, and then I push this rock around to get a rare candy, which I've been stockpiling this entire time. Now I gotta go back up to Saffron to take on Sabrina, but not before I go to Celadon and get the TM for Ice Beam for Lapras. Now I can go back to Saffron to take on Sabrina, I think. So this battle actually ended up being really good. She leads off with a Kadabra at level 38, and I lead off with Lapras just to try to do as much damage as possible, and it actually ends up KOing the Kadabra and doing some good damage to Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime then goes for a Barrier and then a Baton Pass into Venomoth, which is just so wild to me. So I just decided to switch out into Charizard here because I know Charizard could easily take this thing out and I don't have to worry about it getting healed up, and it's also able to take down the Mr. Mime as well, leaving her to her last Pokemon, Alakazam, which just destroys my Charizard. I send out Snake just to try to do some damage to this thing, and I do end up getting a Bite Off before going down, and I decide to send out Hitmonchan next, which actually surprisingly does some pretty good damage, but unfortunately Alakazam does get healed up. Hitmonchan then goes down to a Psychic, so I send out and I end up going for Sleep Powder here after taking a Psychic, which does a lot of damage and almost KOs me, leaving me with only 4 HP. Luckily, Sleep Powder does connect, so I do have at least a turn to figure something out. I go for Petal Dance, knowing it's probably not enough for a KO as Alakazam gets woken up by a full heal. But luckily for me, Petal Dance is actually a critical hit, and it takes down Alakazam. I guess that went as well as it could considering the circumstances. Next up is a Blaine, and I was not teaching Fly to Charizard, so for the first time ever in my entire life, I decided to go to Cinnabar Island without using Fly. Normally, you just fly to Pallet and then you surf down, or you could torture yourself by going through this ice cave that you haven't been in since you were like 6 years old because you wanted to find Articuno. Wait, I mean, I guess I could. Should I? Maybe. It took me a ludicrous amount of hours to figure out where to actually go to get through this place without using Fly, and I'm never going to do it again. Anyway, the Blaine battle was no big deal. It was slightly annoying because Arcanine actually managed to take down Lapras, and Rapidash also gave Lapras a lot of trouble because Blaine just knows how to use full heals and restores and just everything he could possibly imagine. I had to send out my own Charizard to take down the Arcanine, and it looks like that is the 7th gym badge down, only one more to go, and then it is time for the Elite Four. The last gym leader, of course, course, is Giovanni, and I decided to lead off with Hitmonchan just to take down a few, just to switch it up a little bit instead of using Lapras for these last two like I always do. Rhyhorn and Dugtrio both go down to Hitmonchan, but unfortunately Nidoqueen is just too much for Hitmonchan to handle, so I switch out into Lapras, and then from there it is absolutely a clean sweep with Surf. Now that we have all 8 gym badges out of the way, we cannot take on the Elite Four yet without finding our 6th and final team member. I was thinking, what can I catch that's actually strong that I could actually use in the Elite Four without absolutely breaking the game wide open, like Articuno for example. After thinking about it, I narrowed it down to either Eevee or Snorlax. Maybe. I still had to take on my rival before getting to the Elite Four, so I decided to go ahead and do that. Yeah is still a hard counter to Blastoise, so hopefully during the champion fight nothing changes and he doesn't learn like Blizzard. You would think I would know by now, but I honestly have no idea. Also, I decided on Snorlax just because it's a really good mon that I could catch and I don't have to go through a whole bunch of dialogue or dumb animations or asking it the nickname every single time. The only better solution, I guess time-wise, would be to find a wild one, but it might suck, so I'm good. Snorlax is definitely a lot more convenient. Like I said, there's no silly animation or nicknaming thing. All you have to do is press A and press the reset button over and over again until you get the result that you want. This one actually was not bad at all. It was around 9,000 resets overall before I finally got my shiny Snorlax. And I didn't even have an issue catching him because I have a Master Ball. And with that, that is our 6th and final team member. Welcome back, Lazy. I can now finally head to the Elite Four. Victory Road, like always, is a piece of cake because you actually don't have to fight anybody for Victory Road, which is kind of, odd. Regardless, now that we're out, we're able to train up our team and take on the Elite Four for the final time, only using shinies. This is going to be the final team and movesets going into the Elite Four. I worked with what I had, and honestly, it could have ended up a lot worse. I tried to give Arbok like really good moves, but the only useful thing I probably put on him is Toxic, but yeah, I tried. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get into it. First up, of course, is Lorelei, who sends out a Dugong at level 52, and I decided to lead off with Ya because I thought it was a good idea, but I got crit by S-Beam and Ya ends up going down almost immediately. I send out Hitmonchan next and go for Brick Break, which is enough to take down the Dugong, and next up is the Slowbro at level 52, and I really didn't know who to switch out into here, so I decided eventually on Snake. I end up going for everybody's favorite move, Toxic, as I get put to sleep because of Yawn. Unfortunately, after a couple of Surf, Snake ends up going down, so I decide to send out Lazy. I go for Headbutt here, and luckily it is enough to take it out, and Cloyster is next up at level 51. I end up going for Yawn, as Cloyster ends up setting up Spike, so I switch out into Hitmonchan once Cloyster falls asleep, and then I just end up spamming Brick Break because Lorelei loves to use full restores. Next out is Jinx, who takes down Hitmonchan with an Ice Punch, so I send out Charizard and go for a Flamethrower, which absolutely destroys it, and last up is Lapras. And all it took to beat Lapras was a little bit of luck and Flamethrower. And now with Lorelei out of the way, next up is everybody's favorite Elite Four member, and the strongest member, by the way, Bruno. First out from Bruno is an Onix at level 51 who gets decimated by Petal Dance, and next up is the Hitmonchan at level 53, not as cool as mine because mine has blue gloves, but he is able to confuse Ya and take him down. I send out Charizard next, and I honestly think I'm gonna decimate this thing with Wing Attack, but it ends up hanging on with literally 1 HP and hits me with a Rock Tomb, which lowers my speed and does half my health. At this point, I think Machamp's going to eat me alive, so I switch out into Snake here, and I get hit with a critical hit right away, and I decide to go for a Screech to lower Machamp's defense, so maybe I could end up doing some damage with Hitmonchan. Brick Break ends up getting a critical hit here, but Machamp does take me down with a Cross Chop, so I send out Charizard again, knowing this thing's... Wait, it didn't get healed up, what? After Bruno lets his ace die, he sends out Hitmonlee and takes down Charizard with a Mega Kick, which is the first time in a long time that Charizard actually went down, so I just send out Lapras to finish up the rest of the battle, and that is Bruno out of the way. Next up is Agatha. Agatha leads off with her most annoying Gengar at level 54 and ends up going for a double team, of course, and unfortunately Lapras isn't able to do just over half HP with Surf, so Gengar ends up getting healed up, and then it goes for Toxic, and it's just not looking great for me, but it gets greedy and goes for more double teams, so it's able to get taken out with only a Surf. Golbat then takes down Lapras with Air Cutter, so I switch out into Lazy. I thought Lazy would be able to take down Golbat, but I get confused and Lazy ends up hitting itself in confusion a lot, so I have to switch out into Charizard. Golbat goes down to a Flamethrower, and next up is Arbok at level 56, who hits me with a Screech before going down to a couple of Flamethrowers. Next out is Gengar, who does a lot of damage with Sludge Bomb, but it does get taken down with only a couple of Flamethrowers, and the same thing happens to Haunter. Charizard definitely came in clutch there, but I'm not so sure he could do that with Lance. Lance leads off with a Gyarados at level 56, and I lead off off with Hitmonchan and go for a Thunder Punch just to try to do a little bit of damage of Gyarados. That didn't do any damage because of the Gen 3 special physical split stuff. So I am able to switch out into Lazy relatively safe, and I'm able to set up a rollout, which eventually is able to take down the Gyarados, and it's able to one-shot the Aerodactyl. I'm pretty sure if I was able to move first there, I would be able to one-shot the Dragonite. Dragonite moves first and takes down Lazy, and then it's able to one-shot Snake with a Hyper Beam, but not before I get a Toxic Off, and Lapras comes in to clean it up with an Ice Beam. He also cleans up Dragonair with an Ice Beam, and he also cleans up Dragonair with an Ice Beam. And with that, Lance is taken care of, and the only battle left in the entire game is with our rival. Here we go. Initially, the plan was to lead off with Snorlax, and Snorlax take down Pidgeot with a rollout, but this did not go to plan at all. I end up only connecting with one rollout, and then I get hit with a Sand Attack, and I miss literally everything else except one crit, which gets completely healed off with a full restore, so I just decided to go for rest here, healing up, and my stats are absolutely a mess after that Feather Dance, so I end up switching out into Snake. Pidgeot unfortunately just destroys Snake here, so I just end up sending out a Lapras, hit this thing with an Ice Beam, and it is enough to take it out. For some reason, his next mon is Rhydon, who just gets one shot with Surf, so that was a little bit odd. Next out is Executor, which is also again a little bit odd because it goes down with only 2 Ice Beams, and next out is Alakazam at level 57. And Lapras finally has met her match as she eventually ends up going down to a Psychic by Alakazam. As soon as the Reflect wears off, I go for Headbutt, and it's enough to take down Alakazam, but next up is Arcanine at level 59, so I decided to set up a rollout, which actually turned out really well. Even though Arcanine gets healed up with a full restore, another rollout brings it right back down in the red, so it's forced to go for extreme speed to take me out. I send out Charizard to finish off the Arcanine, and last up is Blastoise, and I just decided to go for a Flamethrower here, knowing unfortunately Blastoise will take down Charizard with the 1 Hydro Pump. But with that, I'm able to get a safe switch into where I'm able to put Blastoise to sleep and use Petal Dance to take down Blastoise, beating the game with only shinies. If this video somehow gets me to 70,000 subscribers, I will do this again in any game that you guys choose, but until then, that's it. Bye bye.